Good afternoon. I'd like to call the City of Columbia Planning Commission meeting for July 14th, 2022 into session. Welcome to Planning Commission members, staff, and guests. We ask for your patience during this meeting. Multiple staff members are here today. That includes Lucinda Statler, Planning Administrator, Hope Hasty, Zoning Administrator, Jonathan Chambers, Land Development Administrator, Andrew Livingood, Annexation Coordinator.
If you're watching the meeting via City TV, you will see live images or still images of Planning Commission members and the administrator. However, images of the applicant and the public will not be visible. Today, public participation will be heard here in person or via email by those watching on City TV. When participating, please provide your name for documentation purposes. The public may stream meetings through City TV, accessed at www.youtube.com/user/ColumbiaSCGovernment. The public may submit letters and statements via email to cocpc@columbiasc.gov leading up to and or during the meeting, as this account will be monitored during the meetings. Emails and letters sent during the meeting will be read into the record. Emails and letters received prior to the meeting have been forwarded to the Commission. If you are here today to speak about a case, you must speak up when the chairperson calls for public comment. And I will read the roll. Mr. Cohn?
Here.
Ms. Davis?
Here.
Mr. Harp?
Here.
Ms. Hartz? Ms. Thomas?
Here.
Mr. Tupper?
Here.
And Mr. Frost?
Here.
We have a quorum.
I'll give a brief overview of the meeting. So applicants with requests before the Planning Commission are allotted a presentation time of 10 minutes. This time should include, but is not limited to, an overview of the project, the case history, and any pertinent meetings held regarding the request. This time also includes all persons presenting information on behalf of the applicant, such as attorneys, engineers, and architects. This time limit does not include any questions asked by Planning Commission or staff regarding requests. Members of the general public are given the opportunity to address their concerns in intervals of 2 minutes. Applicants may have 5 minutes to respond. The administrator has a timer and will make presenters aware of when their time has expired. The Planning Commission reserves the right to amend these procedures on a case-by-case basis. Are there any changes to the agenda?
We do have a couple of changes to the agenda. You'll be going into executive session, I believe, at the beginning of the meeting. And then case number 4 under site plan review, which is S-Plan-2022-0014 for 301 Assembly Street, has been withdrawn. And that is the extent of the changes to this agenda.
Thank you.
I think we'll go ahead and, if
Okay.
you want to make that motion
Yeah,
before we...
I'd like to request a motion to move into executive session to receive legal advice related to matters covered by attorney-client privilege pursuant to Section 30-4-70A2 for case number 8, text amendment 2022-0005. Can I get a motion?
Make the motion that we move into executive session.
Got a motion to move into executive session. Can I get a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. The ayes have it. We'll move into executive session. Can I get a motion that we exit executive session? Got a motion to exit executive session. Can I get a second? Got a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The ayes have it. We are back in session. The Planning Commission uses the consent agenda to approve non-controversial or routine matters by a single motion and vote. Examples of such items include approval of site plans, annexations, and street names. If a member of the Planning Commission or the general public wants to discuss an item on the consent agenda, you must speak up after the consent agenda is read. Then that item is removed from the consent agenda and considered during the regular meeting agenda. The Planning Commission then approves the remaining consent agenda items.
So on the consent agenda, we have approval of the June 9th, 2022 minutes. Next, we have under future land use map amendment and zoning map amendment for pending annexations. Case number 1 is Annex-2022-0017, 218 Carolina Street. This is a request to annex the property and assign a land use classification of urban core mixed residential type 3 and assign zoning of residential two-family Mill Village District, RDMV, a portion of which is in the floodplain overlay at the time of annexation. The property is currently classified as mixed residential high density and zoned RMHD by Richland County. Case number 2, Annex-2022-0018, 157 Saskatoon Drive. Request to annex the property and assign a land use classification of Urban Edge Residential Small Lot and assign a zoning of Residential Single Family Small Lot District at the time of annexation. The property is currently classified as Neighborhood Medium Density and zoned RSMD by Richland County. Under minor amendment to a plan development, case number 3, ZMA-2022-0010, 318 Bunker Lane. This is a request to make a minor amendment to a plan development. As I mentioned, case number 4 under site plan was withdrawn. So moving on to case number 5, this is a street name, SN-2022-0003. Name streets within the Pecan Orchard subdivision, formerly known as Pecan Grove, Riding Grove Road, Pecan Drop Road, Pecan Orchard Road, and Winding Orchard Road. The properties are zoned PD in the Wood Creek Farms plan development. Under future land use map amendment confirmation, case number 6, LUMA-2022-0003, 12.59 acres on the Shop Road extension. Request to confirm the future land use classification of industrial. The property is currently assigned an interim future land use classification of industrial. And a zoning map amendment confirmation, case number 7, ZMA-2022-0011, 12.59 acres on the Shop Road extension. Request to confirm the zoning of light industrial district. The property currently has interim zoning of light industrial district. And that concludes the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there anyone present that would like to have a consent agenda item removed and placed onto the regular agenda? Hearing none.
I need to recuse myself.
Okay. Let it known that Mr. Harris Cone is recusing himself from the consent agenda. We've heard the consent agenda. Any questions from Planning Commission? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Got a motion to approve the consent agenda. Can I get a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. The ayes have it. The motion's approved. The consent agenda is approved. We will use the following outline for regular agenda items. The administrator will introduce the case. Again, the applicant will have 10 minutes to make a presentation. Planning Commission may ask questions. The public will be allowed to participate via email or in person. Planning Commission may ask additional questions of the applicant, and then action by Planning Commission will occur.
The first item on the regular agenda this evening is a request to amend Section 17.5.2 of the Columbia Code of Ordinances. The request is to remove minimum parking requirements for the NAC, CAC, RAC, MU1, and MU2 zoning districts. Remove parking requirements for non-residential uses occupying new or existing structures of 7,500 square feet or less, and lessen the requirements for certain uses. So on the screen, you can see here, this is our parking table in the Unified Development Ordinance, and these are the proposed changes. So just kind of going through that again, you can see that NAC, CAC, and RAC are proposed to be removed from the center column and put into the no minimum column, as well as MU1 and MU2. At the bottom of the table, you can see under the notes section there, number 3, about the non-residential uses occupying new or existing structures of 7,500 square feet or less, being exempt from a minimum parking requirement. And then the third part of the request was to reduce requirements for certain uses. Some of those are manufacturing uses. We do have one change to that request. So after further review of the amendment, if Planning Commission is inclined to recommend approval of the amendment, staff recommends that the Commission do so with the following change, and that's to amend this table, 17.5.2 D1, so that private dorms and public dorms each require 0.5 spaces per bedroom in all zoning districts. And I'll go back in the table to show you where that is. We're having some trouble with the clicker today. Okay, so on that column, or the table on the right there, we had crossed out the 0.5 per bedroom and put no minimum. The request this is being requested to change to have 0.5 spaces per bedroom for both public and private dorms.
You said 1.5?
0.5.
0.5.
And so just some background to the request here is that when staff looked at this, we saw that many urban areas across the country are taking steps to reduce their off-street parking requirements as alternatives to individual auto use grow, and many desire a more pedestrian-oriented environment. And reducing required parking provides several benefits to communities. Reducing the amount of impervious surface reduces stormwater runoff and lessens the impact of urban heat islands. And as less individual parking is created, other forms of transportation are encouraged, and a more walkable, pedestrian-friendly urban core and corridors develop. Businesses benefit from increased pedestrian activity while still being able to provide parking if needed. And I do want to just underline that or make note of that, is that this amendment would not prohibit the provision of parking. And that's all, unless there are any questions.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Just so I understand correctly, this is for all existing buildings, not new?
So it would be for new as well.
New as well, okay.
Yes.
Yeah. It states new or existing, so.
There were some differences on that a while back, but thanks.
Does the applicant care to speak?
I think Ms. Hasty summarized it very well with regard to the benefits that we see, including, though, that what we're doing is removing harm that can be done from excess parking requirements as well. They add to housing costs, to business costs, a whole host of other induced travel, congestion, and reiterating that this does not eliminate on-street parking. It just eliminates our requirement for it. So I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from Planning Commission for the applicant or staff at this time?
I just have a question. If I were to hypothetically go build a 7,000 square foot building, I don't have retail building, I don't have any requirements for parking, brand new.
That's correct.
Okay. Doesn't matter the tenant, no parking requirements.
Right.
Let me just follow up, too, to give you a bit of context. The districts that were named are our mixed-use districts. And the intent in each of those districts, as enumerated in the ordinance, are to encourage pedestrian-oriented, walkable development. It also, those came out of our comprehensive plan as well, where one of the guiding principles was to intensify development at appropriate locations and to encourage infill and redevelopment. And so this proposal meets those goals. And so new development on existing lots and redevelopment as well. And this would largely be infill development because these corridors are in need of infill. This is not greenfield development necessarily. These are our mixed-use corridors.
Thank you. Was there something that prompted the amended recommendation to add 0.5 spaces for private or non-private dorms?
I'll let Ms. Hampton speak to that.
Yeah, so some of our policymakers had heard concerns about that particular
Okay.
use with regard to parking, so made that change.
Got it.
May we go back to the map that was just shown? Is there any,
That, and it's missing a little bit on the top and bottom, but a map, this isn't a zoning map amendment, but that shows you our mixed-use corridors that are the RAC, the NAC and the CAC and the MU1 and the MU2. And also, what I need to point out as well is that we already have a large part of our downtown, including where we are and into the Vista, which currently do not have zoning parking requirements. Within the central business district, we have not had them since the 1970s. And then we extended that further into the central business district with the Unified Development Ordinance. So this is just an extension of those changes.
so these areas in red and purple on this map would be what we're talking about specific for this today?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Those are the areas that are currently under those zoning districts that would have the exemption.
I have a quick question. The areas that we're talking about, are they in areas that are walkable?
Pardon? Say again?
Are they in areas that are walkable, where it's easy for them to get to those areas?
A large part of them are. I won't say that all of them are walkable. We're hopeful that it will encourage walkability. So additionally, what happens is if you have large swaths of surface parking, that actually decreases your walkability from a number of perspectives. One, it moves development out, it spreads it out, it increases suburban sprawl, which then decreases your walkability. So this policy change, while it won't happen overnight, I'm not going to tell you it's even going to be in 5 years, encourages the type of development that we've heard we wanted to see for years.
Any other questions for the applicant or
Just for-
staff?
Just for clarification, so there's no current projects underway that would be affected by this change that you're requesting?
And pardon me, I'm sorry?
Are there any current projects underway or in the planning stage of that would be affected by this change?
So anything current would be falling under our current zoning ordinance. If they are providing parking, then they would have the possibility of redeveloping that into some other more productive use if necessary. But this would apply prospectively to new developments after the adoption.
Are any of those known at this time? Any new developments?
Anything that it would have actually been anything that would be coming to see you. So we do have developments coming to you actually tonight that currently have no parking requirements that are providing a parking structure. They will more than likely continue to provide that because they don't have that requirement currently. So it's really whatever would happen after, and of course, City Council would have to approve this. It would go before them in September, so it would only apply to developments after that adoption.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions for the applicant or staff? All right, we encourage those who would like to comment via email or via the public to begin sending in emails to cocpc@columbiasc.gov.
I'll just go ahead and acknowledge the correspondence that has come in up until now.
Sure.
We have a couple of exhibits related to this request. Exhibit A was comments that had come in via email up until about 4 p.m. yesterday. Those were forwarded along to all of you. You don't have a hard copy of those. Exhibit A is just the stuff that was forwarded to you via email, but I'll read the list of folks who sent those emails. There was an email from Bill Bunch, one from Jack Cobb, one from John Gregory, from Tony Hanna, Marshall Hoffer, Rhett Kelly, Michael Lucas, Ryan McHugh, George McCutcheon, Jeff Prioreschi, Frank Thorne, Craig Waits, and Peter Wardlaw. These were primarily just brief emails of support for this text amendment. And then after 4 p.m. yesterday, we've had some more emails come through. This was provided to you in a hard copy. This is Exhibit B. Public comments received in writing after 4 p.m. yesterday. There is a letter from Carl Blackstone of the Columbia Chamber, an email from Bill Owen, an email from Danielle McSwain Shealy in opposition, an email from Elizabeth Marks with Coalition of Downtown Neighborhoods in opposition, and then an email from Jeremy Wilson of support. And then we have also had a couple of emails come through after that was printed and sent to you guys. And those have also been provided hard copies to you today. There is a letter from Emily Byrne, the president of the Earlwood Neighborhood Association, as well as a letter from Denise Wellman, the president of the Cottontown Bellevue Historic District neighborhood.
So those two last ones that you just mentioned were just provided to us today. I'd offer you a little bit of time to read over those just briefly, so you have that information. right, I think we have all had a chance to read over the emails. Lucinda, will we now go into public comment within,
Yeah, I don't have any
The
emails
chamber.
that have come through about this case since the two that you,
okay. We'll now open it up to folks here in the chamber to speak for or against. If there's anybody here to speak for or against case number 8.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Jim Daniel. I'm president of the Wheeler Hill Neighborhood Association, and I sent Lucinda last night a letter about 10, 11 o'clock, basically, with my comments. She didn't reference it. Very briefly, let's summarize how we got here. For 2 years, the Columbia Compass was discussed amongst business community, individuals. It ended up in a document that was approved in 2019. It went in effect in August 2021. It's been in effect less than 11 months. Now we're coming back, and they have asked to basically gut the parking requirements in that and basically throw the bath, basically start completely over again. First of all, number of people that are supporting what I'm trying to say would like to see this matter deferred. Quite frankly, this came out of the blue last Friday. We didn't know the details of it. Nobody's really had a chance to get into it, and we would like to at least have a presentation by Ms. Hampton as to the effects of it so the neighborhoods can understand and try to help them support this item. So that's the first question, and maybe that's what we all were talking about in executive session. We'd like to get this deferred till August so we have a better understanding of what we're dealing with. If that's not the case, let's go through some stuff. I think our main concern is the NAC, the Neighborhood Activity Corridors, which basically front of the main streets, Divine, Blossom, Main, Sumter, Bull, etc., on which the neighborhoods are backing up to these districts. If we have, for example, a restaurant that right now would require 32 parking places and say they only wanted, I'm going to continue, I think I'm speaking for everybody else, only 20, then where are the 12 people going to go that want to go to this restaurant? Cottontown does not have parking on Main Street. It does have parking on side streets. So what do we do about when the neighborhoods start seeing the infusion of these cars coming in from the restaurants or other places that can't park at their particular facilities? Same for a doctor's office. This is another heavy user. Same for a salon. That's the concern, that the NAC does not look at the issues that this will create for the neighborhoods. The neighborhoods have to go for parking by permit. What happens if this guy owns a restaurant next door to the new restaurant and...
Thank you, sir. Just want to remind you that you do have 2 minutes. And
Okay, well, I think I'm speaking for everybody that's presenting my
well,
position.
why don't we see if anybody else needs an
Can I
opportunity
do
to
one
speak?
last item? On the parking for student complexes, are y'all familiar with what happened to the 9 on UG Street last year? 100 more cars showed up than was accounted for. They had to rent spaces next door. The Compress has an extra lot at the corner of UG and Blossom, which is full. You don't need to be reducing the number of cars at these facilities. You need to be increasing them. A contact of mine at the university said at least 70% of the students at the USC have access to cars. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak for or against? Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your time and the opportunity to chat with you this afternoon. My name is Denise Wellman. I'm president of Cottontown. I appreciate you taking the time to read the letter that I sent to you. I agree with much of what Mr. Daniel said. The idea may have merit, but there's been very little opportunity for those of us that live in historic districts in downtown Columbia, many of which have been here for more than 100 years, to know about this proposal and to be able to have some opportunity to interact with this proposal. These mixed-use districts back up to our residential areas. And again, the idea may have merit, but they are going to add congestion. They are going to make our streets less pedestrian-friendly than they are now. And no one's taking the time to think about that. So we too are asking on behalf of Cottontown that we defer this until we can sit down together and have an opportunity to find solutions that might really work, because we too are in favor of balanced commercial development close to our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Anyone else in the audience that would like to speak for or against case number 8? Hearing none. Are there any follow-up questions from council or from planning commission to the applicant or staff?
I've got a question for the applicant. Thanks. It was mentioned there were 2 apartment complexes that were short on parking. Were those ones that potentially were in areas that did not have parking requirements on them, do you know? The 9?
The 9 had parking requirements.
Okay.
And then they made provisions for additional parking. And the Palmetto Compress also had some, I think they asked for a variance for the Palmetto Compress. Of course, that was a redevelopment of a historic structure.
Sure.
In and around some other historic structures.
Thanks.
Any other questions? If there's no further questions, I'll accept the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve TA-2022-005.
Got a motion to approve. Can I get a second?
Make a motion to amend
Got a motion to amend.
to also include 0.5 spaces per bed in all uses for private and public dorms in 17.5.2 D1.
Got a motion to approve with the amendment as suggested by staff and Mr. Harris Cone. Can I get a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. No. The ayes have it. The motion with the amendment is approved.
All right, the next case is Annex-2021-0024, which is 20.54 acres on the east side of Elmgren Street, which is tax map number 0731204-03. It is a request to annex the property and to assign a land use classification of Urban Edge Mixed Residential, UEMR, and assign a zoning of Residential Mixed District, RM2, at the time of annexation. The property is currently classified as Mixed Residential High Density and zoned RU and RSLD by Richland County. So as with all annexations, the Planning Commission is tasked with making a recommendation on the land use and zoning district for a pending annexation. And in this case, the petitioners, again, are requesting RM2 zoning, which is mixed residential. Staff recommendation is for the assignment of the Urban Edge Mixed Residential UEMR classification at the time of annexation. We do, however, recommend a zoning classification of RM2 for most of the property. However, we do recommend the consideration of a lower density residential district on the western edge of the property. As you can see along Elmgren Street on the western side, to serve as a transition to the existing single-family residences on the west side of Elmgren Street. Well, actually, on both sides of Elmgren Street. I believe Ms. Statler is handing some materials that have been delivered by one of the speakers that will be, who has signed up to speak today.
Thank you.
And again, on this case, I'll just read through the correspondence that has been received so that everybody is aware of what has been provided. Some of the stuff I just passed out, there's a little spreadsheet with some correspondence. This is some of the stuff that was provided to the Planning Commission when this was before you guys in April. And there's also a letter that was provided after the Planning Commission meeting in April from the Broad River Business Alliance. So that's what this packet is. The binded notebook and the large map were provided by the applicant today. And then we've got some other, let's see, which one of my exhibits? Exhibit A, which was also emailed to you guys yesterday afternoon, includes correspondence that was received up until 4 p.m. yesterday, and that includes correspondence from Michael Hagler from the Elm Abode, and a memo from the Elm Abode Huffman Heights Neighborhood Association, and then another email from Michael Hagler with some exhibits, and that included a map, or two maps actually, one of the county neighborhood map and then a parcel map that was attached to that email. So that was all emailed to the commissioners yesterday. I did not provide additional hard copies of that today. And then we have Exhibit B, which is comments that were received in writing after 4 p.m. yesterday. And those include an email from Ashley Barnett, an email from Kathy Dickman, an email from Henrietta Duncan, and an email from Ina Fort Leitner, the Elm Abode Huffman Heights Neighborhood Association president. And those have been provided as hard copies for you guys today, since it was, rather close to the meeting time when they were received.
just want to make sure everybody on planning commission does have appropriate time to flip through anything that was provided to us today, so give us a brief couple minutes.
There is another one that has just come through via email, so when you're ready, I can read that one into the record. Sorry, let me make a clarification. I misspoke. The map, the large map in this notebook were provided by Elma Bow Terrace Neighborhood. I'm sorry, I said the applicant. But this map was in your packet as well, but they provided some hard copies. Those are from the neighborhood. Apologies.
Thank you. Ready to hear any additional emails that have come in? All right, Lucinda, if you want to.
This is an email from Desiree R. Allen. Good afternoon. I write in opposition to the rezoning of a 20-acre parcel of land off Elmgrid Street near my neighborhood of Huffman Heights. Allow me to explain. I retired almost 2 years ago and bought property in this neighborhood because I was attracted to the older homes and the peaceful quality of the neighborhood. I will readily admit that since that time, we have been increasingly subjected to increased noise with the cars speeding up and down Atlantic Drive, problems with homeless people, and potholes in the neighborhood that are almost never repaired. I think that with the addition of 180 single-family townhomes, our issues will grow exponentially. I've been advised that the city's water and sewer systems have not been updated in 50 years or more. I shudder to think what this development will do to an older, about on its last leg water and sewer system. not to mention the damage it will cause to the homes in this older established neighborhood, as well as to our property values. Most of the residents that I have come to know in this neighborhood are more mature, mostly retired individuals who are more susceptible to illnesses stemming from increased air pollution from the demolition of huge boulders and clearance of large acres of land for this development for at least the next couple of years. I would be willing to bet that this massive undertaking of demolition construction will almost certainly result in the release of carcinogens, namely radon or who knows what else. The noise that will come from earth-moving equipment is another negative factor. We would like to lessen, not increase, the noise that disturbs our peace. Consider how a development like this would affect your community. If you can't imagine what that would be like, I'm sure it has a lot to do with why you chose the community neighborhood where your family resides. I would like you to consider the scarcity of pristine land areas in the city. Green trees are beautifying and fresh air producing elements. Please consider why you and your family live in the areas that you live in. I know why. There are positive benefits to living there. Among those benefits are low crime, peace, low noise, low traffic, and green spaces. These are things that we would like to preserve and/or enjoy again in our neighborhood. This proposed development reduces the chances of that happening for us. Please count me, Desiree R. Allen, as one of the many Elm Abode Huffman Heights neighborhood residents who totally and absolutely oppose any further development in or around our neighborhood that is not beneficial to the current and longstanding residents. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Desiree R. Allen, Adela Street. Another one. Okay, there's one more email. Let's see. From Tim Barnett. May my request be heard before this commission. We live in this well-established neighborhood. We are a cohesive group of friends and neighbors. We are individual citizens of Columbia and Richland County. The property in question has been located at Elmgren Street and Atlantic Avenue since our neighborhood was established. The property is zoned as is at its current location for that designated use within this established neighborhood. As the corporate entity, D.R. Horton, wishes to change this designation through the associated zoning request, might I emphasize that the members of this corporation are not the constituents of our locale. The individuals that run this large corporation will not be affected by this zoning change in their personal lives and will possibly never enter our neighborhood on a regular basis once their corporate gain is complete. They will not feel the difficulties associated with this change in their lives. These changes include, but are not limited to, the following: construction traffic delays, construction noise, loss of peace and quiet of the neighborhood, degradation of ambient conditions, prevention of usage of outdoor areas of our houses, disturbance to our pets, construction dust, our cars, our houses, our backyards, our neighborhood, vibration from construction, construction utility cuts, water, gas, and electricity, air and water pollution, heavy diesel equipment, exhaust emissions, oil discharge and leakage, environmental impacts to local wild animals, owls, deer, bald eagles, turtles, coyotes, raccoons. I personally have seen each of these animals on the subject property. Upon completion, the population associated with the requested rental development will generally be under the age of 25 and single, 44% renters. Tabulations of U.S. Census Bureau current population survey, largely representative of the local population of attending university students who will be temporarily located in our neighborhood. Following the requested changes and ensuing construction, our community will experience increased traffic, increased speeding, increase in litter, increased noise pollution. This neighborhood is attracting a multitude of differing groups of individuals of all ages that enjoy the varied aspects of our community. A single-family housing community with an urban area. These are young millennials like me, retired public servants, retired state officers, business owners, and working-class individuals, all among this diverse community. We, as I know, I can speak for many members of our community that are not able to be present, do respectfully request that this commission deny this request for the zoning change. And then he lists the case number. Best regards, Tim Barnett.
All right, is that all the emails that have come in that you're aware of?
As As of now, yes.
Is the applicant present?
Hello, my name is Patrick Livingston, and I'm with Civil Engineering of Columbia. I represent our client. I don't have anything really to add to the staff report. I just want to clarify that we are asking for the RM2 zoning for the entire parcel. And I'm here to answer any questions if you have any.
So I have a couple questions. I guess there were conversations about having RS1 on the western side, have more of a transitional surety that the plans that have been discussed maybe in time wouldn't evolve into something different. What was the reason for maybe not?
To be honest with you, my client's just not willing to entertain that at this time. Just wants the whole parcel contiguously zoned RM2.
Any questions from Planning Commission to the applicant or to staff at this point?
I have a question, it might be more directed for staff, but it says medium-scale multifamily dwellings. How many stories would typically a medium-scale multifamily dwelling entail, or the height?
I mean, I guess probably 3 to 5 stories would be considered medium scale.
Do you know what the height restrictions are over there?
The height restriction is 50 feet in the RM2 district.
Is that the same in a RM1? You know?
RM1 is 40 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions at this time for the applicant? Hearing none, thank you. Any follow-up questions for staff at this point? We'll open it up. We encourage any of those that would like to comment via email to begin sending in emails. I think we've read through those to the extent that we know of at this point. So I'll now open it up to anyone in the audience. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak for or against this, please come forward. I remind you to please adhere to our 2-minute limit to the extent possible. Thank you.
My name is Michael Hagler, and I'm a board member at the Elma Boat Huffman Heights Neighborhood Association. I know you have a lot of information in front of you. Almost all of it is from our neighborhood association, so I could put a little bit more context for you, perhaps. You may remember this started 3 or 4 months ago when this was presented, and it was a little bit confusing then as well. And it ended up in a deferral, and the deferral was designed to allow the community to have conversations with the developer. It was also designed to come up with some solutions, and also designed to connect with the county, because the county has been dealing with some of these same density and multifamily issues. So a little bit of an update on the county side. They voted recently, their planning commission, to exclude multifamily development in all of their R1, 2, and 3 neighborhoods, which includes us. So they have decided to exclude multifamily. We are vehemently opposed to multifamily and high-density development, particularly given the fact that this is part of our neighborhood. It's been on the county maps as Huffman Heights for 40 years probably. So context, we went for deferral. We've been away 3 or 4 months. We organized a meeting with the developer. We had about 60 residents show up. They got an earful that night, but they were very gracious and said, we'd like to go back and study this and develop alternative proposals. We never saw any alternative proposals, although they were promised every 2-3 weeks. Our team is working on it. Our team is working on it. I can't believe it. Is that my time up?
No, you still got some time.
Okay. One of the things that we also gave you today was a petition signed by 75 of our neighbors, including a unanimous vote of Elmgren residents signing the petition to get this. We are not opposed to development. We're just preferring development that is single-family detached residential that would be contiguous with our current neighborhood. We're adamantly opposed high density, and you'll hear more about that from other speakers. There's been a lot of confusion around this. We've been promised things by a developer, we haven't gotten them. Up until the day that this meeting was confirmed on the agenda, I emailed them and said, so this is happening? And they said, yes. Can you tell me what your density count is? No response. Can you tell me what you're proposing to do? No response. We have a sketch. We've never seen it. So we're really frustrated at this, but I'd go back to my point. We think there's a win-win solution at some point that would allow development at single-family detached residential. We're not opposed to annexation because we know annexation is important to have access to services, infrastructure.
Thank you, sir. Let's allow some of the other folks to have a chance to speak.
My
as well.
closing statement is, well, I'm in the middle of it, there is a win-win path forward.
Sure.
This isn't it. So we are proposing denial of this application and go to phase 2 of another developer if it needs that way. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, anyone else here to speak for or against case number 9?
Timothy Marshall Barnett. I would like to thank this commission for allowing me to speak today, this evening. Our historical experience regarding encroachment into existing neighborhoods is that the City of Columbia and Richland County have protected those established neighborhoods from encroachment of non-single-family detached housing into those existing neighborhoods. This subject property is an existing part of our Huffman Heights RSLD neighborhood. The dividing lines of adjacent multifamily units fall outside our neighborhood, along the Bentley and Atlantic Drives. This subject property is directly touching and is a continuation of our RSLD neighborhood, Huffman Heights. It's open space. We're willing to work with the developer to try to get single-family dwellings in there. I think my wife had sent an email from my email that was regarding the wildlife that's there and stuff like that. I've been out there with my dogs. I've seen, I don't think they're nesting, but I've seen an eagle soar over. I've heard owls. It would be a travesty to have this development. The local nearby apartments that are there are no higher than 3 stories. I fell in love with the neighborhood when I was in 4501 Bentley, which is a 3-story apartment. There's 3-story apartments and all the other, nothing more than 3 stories. They're talking 5 stories. Anyways, this rezoning annexation could be a textbook definition of housing encroachment, and we respectfully request a denial of this rezoning application. Thank you for your attention, y'all.
Thank you.
My name is Ina Fort Leitner, and I'm currently the president of the Joint Neighborhood Association for Elma Boat and Huffman Heights. If I could just ask our neighbors that are here to represent us today to stand very quickly. I've served on the board in some capacity for 20-plus years, and I've lived in Elma Bode for 40 years. I own a Montessori school in Huffman Heights that is in the city limits. We annexed 20 years ago. Our school is multi-generational. It'll be 46 years old tomorrow. We've always been active in the community. We routinely give full scholarships to children below poverty level. Our school is located at the corner of Canal Drive and Balsam Road. Balsam dead ends into Atlantic Drive. Over the years, I've watched the traffic increase in both neighborhoods. The traffic on Atlantic has become so problematic that very recently, Richland County Council recently approved the installation of speed humps. There are traffic issues. There is no stoplight on Atlantic. There's no stoplight on Canal. The only stoplight to get out of the neighborhood is a short light at Means, which is designed for pedestrians to cross the street. Maybe 2 cars can get out at a time. It's the only light between Virginia Wingard United Methodist Church at 1500 Broad River Road and Greystone Boulevard. Our school is licensed for 213 children. It's become increasingly difficult for parents dropping off children for school to get back out of the neighborhood and get to work on time. It's even more difficult at the end of the day with Broad River Road rush hour traffic to get out of the neighborhood. We have tired parents, tired, hungry children waiting for long periods of time for an opening onto Atlantic. We have staff members and teachers who are exhausted at the end of a long day who are trying to exit the neighborhood. Exiting from Canal is extremely dangerous if you need to turn left into traffic zipping off of Greystone. The situation has forced some families to have to leave the school. Virginia Wingard Church at 1500 Broad River Road has a similar situation. They have a First Steps program, again, serving children below poverty level, and the only way out is through the church parking lot or at the light at Broad River Road. Residents have a hard time getting to work on time and getting home on time. Our neighborhood is struggling with high traffic volume. Please help us find an alternative to high-density multifamily zoning at that location. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for being brief. Yes, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for letting us speak tonight about this proposed project. My name is Jeremy, and I own a home on Elmgren Street right next to the parcel in question. When I was house hunting about 4 years ago, I asked my real estate agent about the large wood lot across the street. And the last thing I wanted to do was buy this house only to have apartment buildings or multifamily housing or other high-density buildings pop up. Part of the charm of this neighborhood is that it's one house per half acre. It's low-density housing that is evident throughout the rest of the Elma Bode and Huffman Heights neighborhoods, as well as other neighborhoods to the north. When she came back and said, don't worry, that parcel is zoned as residential low density, so any development would still be similar to and fit the rest of the neighborhood. So I used that knowledge to form my decision and bought this house about 4 years ago. As D.R. Horton or any other developer wanted to subdivide that half-acre lot and build 40 houses on this 20-acre lot to match the rest of the neighborhoods, I'd be fine with that. With the current county designation, it would allow a maximum of 72 single-family units to be placed on this parcel. While not ideal, I'd still be okay with that too. But this developer doesn't want to build low-density housing to match the rest of the neighborhood. They want you to approve the rezoning of this lot to allow for a maximum of 344 units to be placed on this 20-acre land. What they've described to you, or what they've proposed in their application, is not what you're voting on. What you're voting on is changing the zoning code to the RM2 designation. They can change those plans tomorrow or 5 years from now, or sell this plot to another developer who could change the plans entirely. And they would be allowed to build the 344 lots if you allowed that. So what does this mean in context? Well, averaging 2.5 people per unit at 344 units, that's 860 people crammed into this 20-acre lot. If we average 2 cars per household, that's 688 new cars driving to work in the morning and 688 new cars driving home from work. And that's on top of our current density. So this map here, the large map that we have, that just shows you the 193 parcels in the Elma Bode neighborhood and the 70 parcels in the Huffman Heights neighborhood. And because we haven't reached the 344 units yet, I had to borrow about 81 units from the north neighborhood. And that entire area is about 224 acres. They want to cram 224 acres worth of housing into that 20-acre lot. That's 11 times the density of our current neighborhoods. 11 times the population density, 11 times the traffic density, 11 times the utility usage.
Do you mind mentioning your last name for us? Did you get his last name?
Thanks, we were going to ask that. Could
Yeah.
you say that for the
My
record?
last name is Eddie.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good afternoon. My name is Thomas Fort. I have lived in this community for over 40 years. I've lived in the greater community for over 75 years. I'm the past president of the Neighborhood Association, and I would like to talk to you about the traffic concerns. When I grew up in this neighborhood, we rode horses. This neighborhood streets have not changed much in the last 75 years. There's been a lot of development since then, but the streets are still basically the same they were 75 years ago. If you were coming from the city of Columbia to the greater Dutch Square area, you have two roads to come out of. You're going to come out either I-26, which is always jammed up, or you're going to come out Broad River Road, which becomes a parking lot in the morning and a parking lot in the afternoon. There is no access to our neighborhood between the corner of Bush River Road and Broad River Road, which there's an accident every week because there's too much traffic going there. There is only one traffic light for a whole mile between Broad River Road, Bush River Road, and the Broad River Bridge. There is a traffic light at Greystone, but it's a dead end, so it's not access in and out of the neighborhood. If you want to get in and out of our neighborhood, you have to go to Means Avenue, which is where the old Break King was. Means Avenue dead ends into our neighborhoods after 2 blocks, so it's not really a thoroughfare. Atlantic is a thoroughfare, but there's no way to get out. The Department of Transportation's plan is to make Atlantic Drive a right turn only because it is too dangerous to turn left. The other streets, Pardee, Brevard, Canal, River Hill, are the 5 streets between Bush River Road and the Broad River Bridge. They don't have any traffic lights. The Department of Transportation has declined to put traffic lights because those streets are too close together or too dangerous for some reason or another to put traffic lights there. There are 5 or 6 large developments in the city of Columbia: River Walk Vista, Boulder Creek, Landmark, Broad River Township, the Reserve at Riverwalk, Bentley Court, that already have hundreds, if not thousands, of people coming in and out of our neighborhood every day.
Thank you, sir. Your time is up.
Okay, there's also 2 schools. There's no way to get in and out of our neighborhood now, and this will make it much worse.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Hello.
My name's Peggy Fitz. I live on Bentley Drive. That long boundary there on the east side of the property, if you just go down Bentley Drive a little bit to the end. So I am very well acquainted with the actually living on Bentley Drive, and I can tell you that it is already way overbuilt. There are numerous apartment complexes on both sides of Bentley until you get to Atlantic Drive. And then on the left side there's a planned urban development that has a lot of residences, different types of units. And then right past there, we are single-family dwelling. And at the end of Bentley, there's another large apartment complex. Just sort of a little off-the-cuff estimate, 1,800 people already live on Bentley Drive, and it is a nightmare to get out of the neighborhood. It would be a travesty to add that many more people. It would be a travesty to, not only are there no lights, the visibility is very poor. When you're coming out of Bentley onto Broad River, most people turn right if they need to turn left and go and do a U-turn into the turning lane and into a little bit of the parking lot of the automobile dealership and then scoot into traffic because you just can't get out with a left-hand turn. Same thing with Atlantic. The traffic is often backed up there and you can't get in and out of Atlantic because people do not obey the big X where they're supposed to leave the space open. Also, when you're coming in off of Broad River to make a turn onto Atlantic to get in the neighborhood. There are also people going the opposite direction who want to turn onto Bush River Road. And so we're using the same turn lane. And I know that there have been head-on collisions there because the people trying to turn into the neighborhood are met head-on by the people on Broad River trying to turn onto Bush River. So that is really poor. But I think that the neighborhood has absorbed enough multifamily housing.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you.
And in addition to that, on Atlantic Drive, there across from the property, the City of Columbia Housing Authority also has a big apartment complex.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How you guys doing? I'm Drew Hunter. I live in Elm Abode. I'm a local business owner. And I don't want to rehash too much of what my fellow neighbors have kind of gone over, but we're opposed to this, and we've been discussing what it's going to cost us, what it's going to cost the neighborhood, what it's going to cost the county, the area at large. It's going to stress the traffic infrastructure. It's going to stress our utility infrastructure. I don't know if anyone's mentioned, but we've already seen a huge increase in litter as a result of the MDU or the multi-dwelling, the influx of multi-dwelling building. And I believe that's why the county has put a freeze on it, because they've probably found, as if you walked and did any kind of research in the area, the buildings or the apartment setups that are already there, they're not even at capacity. They have a lot of vacancy. There's hotels that have been abandoned for quite some time. That'd be an opportunity for redevelopment if someone wanted to come in and actually contribute to the environment. But I just don't see how this deal benefits Richland County. Doesn't sound like the applicant is a resident of the city of Columbia or Richland County, so I don't understand economically how it benefits the city of Columbia. It seems like a huge tax on the area for little to no benefit. So that's why we're asking that it be denied.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah. Anyone else to speak for or against?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Commissioners, my name is Roddy Burris. I live on Greenville Circle in Huffman Heights. And I wanted to oppose this proposed change in zoning. Other than money, the issue that probably affects all of us more than anything else is our environment. And that said, we live sort of in a place now where you really don't know whether to mention the word environment in polite society anymore. It's become such a controversial issue. Still, I rise to tell you that quality of life is an environmental issue. And as such, if anything that my neighbors have said, I live in Huffman Heights, if anything my neighbors have said today makes sense to you in the quality of life that they're trying to maintain, I would ask that you give it your best consideration. Most of us have yards and trees, and that contributes to our quality of life. And we'd like to hold on to that as much as is possible without, of course, denying others their chance, fair chance to quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else present to speak for or against?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Kathleen McDaniel.
I'm hitting cleanup. I don't know any good sports metaphors, but I'm the attorney for the neighborhood, so I'm going to try to summarize and give you a quick closing argument on why you should deny approval of this annexation request. First of all, we've got some real serious concerns about who is actually bringing this annexation request before you. During the time between when it was previously deferred and now, it has been reposted for sale. Mr. Hagler has been in touch with the real estate agent. He was told that the contract had fallen through and now it's back on. So it's not clear to us that the engineer that's here actually is representing D.R. Horton with a plan for how they're going to develop this property. Second of all, as Mr. Hagler also mentioned, the county has been taking a very hard look at their proposed rezoning of the whole unincorporated areas. And what they have decided, because of neighborhood pressure and concern, a lot of it from neighborhoods that I represent, like these very passionate people, they have decided to take multifamily attached out of any of the single-family residential designations. So if you approved this high-density zoning for this annexed parcel, it would then become inconsistent with the zoning that's going to be applied by the county to the areas that are within the county. And I know that one of the goals of your comprehensive planning process is to have consistency among adjacent jurisdictions. Finally, I know my time is up, but I do want to make sure that you understand the amount of density we're talking about here. Within the entire neighborhood now, there are less than 400 homes. As the proposed development would go through, we haven't seen a development plan, you could be looking up at far more than that, 340 units or more, really impacting this neighborhood. Thank you. Please deny this request.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else here to speak for or against case number 9? Hearing none. Any follow-up questions at this point for staff?
I have a question. Given that we have annexation here and it would be an assigned zoning use, if it was RM2 and the developer did not proceed maybe as planned, they can come back by right and do anything that complies with that later?
Yes, that's correct. Anything that is allowed within the RM2 district would be permitted, subject to any development requirements.
Okay.
I have another question. I can't remember if we talked about this previously, but have we done a traffic study for this area?
We have spoken with our traffic engineering division, and if there was a development of scale that the engineer had suggested, they would recommend a traffic impact study as part of the site plan review process. And of course, they would need to abide by any recommendations therefore.
Would the applicant care to respond at all to the comments, concerns?
The only thing I'd say is, yes, I am representing D.R. Horton. I apologize if I didn't make that clear.
Thank you. All right.
May I ask Steph another question?
Yeah, got another question?
So if we choose to approve this request as it's presented, and the traffic study comes back and has recommendations, how will that be handled? Will those be recommended that those things be met before any construction occurs?
So, you know, the rezoning stands on its own. If an application comes to you for a subdivision review or a site plan review, that traffic impact study would be part of your review of that development.
Thank you.
Any other questions from Planning Commission? Is that okay? Yeah, we'll allow one more comment.
I believe the answer was that whatever zoning is applied is going to be what is there for the property. So regardless of whether a traffic study comes back, once that high density is there, the possibility for that development will always be there.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Hearing no further questions, I will accept the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to set a motion for Annex 2021-0024. .54 acres, Elm Green Street, TMS number 07312-04-03.
I'm sorry, what was your motion? I
Yeah.
wasn't
A
clear.
motion to approve.
Oh, to approve, okay.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Got a motion to approve, got a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no.
No.
So the motion fails, so we need another motion, right?
Yes.
All right. I'll open the floor for another motion.
I'll make the motion that we deny.
Got a motion on the table to deny.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The ayes have it. The motion to annex and rezone is denied. you. Yeah, if you want to keep one, sure. This one is already in our
Oh, you can
packet, so.
keep that. I had the one from last time.
All right, that's going to bring us to item number 10, which is S-Plan 2022-0013, 400 block of Gervais Street, 1100 block of Hugie Street, 400 block of Senate Street, and the 1100 block of Williams Street, various TMS numbers. This project entails the construction of a 45,000 square foot hotel and a parking garage on 2.82 acres, bounded by Gervais Street, Williams Street, and Senate Street. The proposed hotel, located at the corner of Gervais and Williams Street, will contain approximately 249 rooms and will be 7 stories. Vehicular access to the hotel will be provided through a two-way access along Williams Street and Senate Street. The parking garage located at the corner of William Street and Senate Street will contain 391 parking spaces, whereas 215 will be reserved for the hotel. Vehicular access to the parking garage will also be provided through a two-way access along William Street and Senate Street. There are no parking requirements for hotels constructed in the MC zoning district. The applicant has provided a traffic impact study, which has been reviewed and approved by the City Traffic Engineering Division. We'd also like to point out that this site plan approval does not include the future multi-housing building that's located at the corner of Hugie Street and Senate Street, and that we do not have the details regarding rooms and that type of thing for that review. And if the Planning Commission is inclined to grant the approval, we would ask that it be done with staff comments.
Okay. Is the applicant present?
Good evening.
Evening.
My name is Gerald Lee. I'm with Chow & Associates. I'm the civil engineer working on this project with Nauman Hotels. We are here to request that you approve our site plan that we've been working on for several years now. And as you can see by the list of the city's agencies, we've been working closely with all of them, and we've basically received their recommendations for approval on this project. We feel this hotel and parking facility will be a great addition to the downtown area. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions at this point for staff or the applicant? I have one question. I understand this was deferred from DDRC.
Yes, this, the hotel building was at the DDRC in May of this year. They did defer the project. They wanted to look at the hotel building and the garage together to see how the compatibility of the designs. So it will be back at DDRC next Thursday for both the hotel building and the garage building designs.
That being the case, is there any concern of DDRC having any comments or changes that would manipulate the site plan that we're looking at today?
I mean, that remains to be seen, I guess, next week. The only overlap, I would say, has to do with, there are a lot of questions having to do with the access to the site, because the Innovista design guidelines talk about A streets and B streets and where access should be from. So that will probably become part of the DDRC discussion as well, but that's certainly also part of the traffic study and things that the Planning Commission will look at. But, as a site-specific comment, the applicant has applied for their DOT permits, and there's certain site-specific restrictions on where they can access the site, and so that's what their site plan is based on, if I'm understanding that correctly.
Understood. Anyone on Planning Commission have questions regarding the case?
I have a question. So just to be clear, the apartments would still come back, that site plan?
Correct. They are not a part of this review.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Lucinda, what was the deferral for at DDR, or?
The motion that was made at the DDRC meeting in May was they wanted to be able to look at at that time, the garage design had not been submitted to staff or to the commission. And since that's associated with the project, they wanted to be able to look at the design of both of those together. They also had some questions about just the landscaping, some landscaping is within their purview if it's screening, parking, and that sort of thing. So they had two pieces of their motion that had to do with looking at those items as a follow-up. So those will be discussed along with the garage design next week.
All right. Any other questions for the applicant or staff at this stage? Here none, we'll open it up.
Yes, I'll take this opportunity to also acknowledge the correspondence that's been received on this case. Similar to the last two, there's Exhibit A was emailed to you all yesterday afternoon. That includes all of the correspondence that was received prior to 4 p.m. yesterday. So I'll read those names into the record. There was an email with an attachment from Paul Gaffney. There was an email from Bart Walrath, the Vista Neighborhood Association president. There was an email from Laura Tucker, the Girl Scouts, representing the Girl Scouts of South Carolina, an email from Daryl K. Williams. There was also a number of emails and some other documents submitted via Mr. John Taylor. There was a letter with a sketch from Mr. Taylor, an executive summary document that had some images in it that was provided to you as well. A page that was called Traffic Study Comments. There was an email from Michael Edwards, an email from Ted Fettner, an email from Gordon M. Langston, an email from Charlie Ledecker, and an email from Susan Levi Wallach. And then Exhibit B were emails that were received after 4 p.m. yesterday. Those have been provided to you as a hard copy today, as well as they were forwarded earlier this afternoon. There's an email from Amy Brown and an email with an attachment from Elizabeth Marks on behalf of the Robert Mills Historic Neighborhood Association. And today, after that exhibit was put together, we received an email from Steve Henson, which was also distributed to you as a hard copy today.
May you allow us a little time to take a look at this?
Absolutely. Okay, we've got some more correspondence.
Okay. Go ahead when you're ready.
All right, this email is from Jim Caldwell. Hello, I've lived in downtown Columbia, specifically the Vista, for 10 years. My wife and I have enjoyed the growth in the area over the time, and we support development in Columbia. Regarding the proposed hotel on the agenda today, I believe the current plan is suboptimal and does not meet the vision for the Vista/Innovista, which has been carefully planned out in the past and very successful. From what I can see from the proposed hotel, is simply too tall compared to the surrounding buildings and does not fit within the rhythm and surrounding buildings, including Adventure, Publix, and McDonald's. While not in the West Gervais Historic District, this location is on the way to our low-profile Warehouse Arts and Entertainment District. It also gives many a first impression of Columbia, and this large structure will totally shift the perception and hide many buildings and views. In addition, the plan shows a structure void of brick, again, not compatible with surrounding buildings. This area can be a very pedestrian-friendly area with vistas and views to the rivers and to the city skyline. This proposed project does not enhance that, and I ask that you not approve at this time. We had a number of hotels that are either all brick or nearly all brick and fit with the warehouse feel. These are not this tall and were carefully planned. Thank you for your consideration. Jim Caldwell.
Another question, I guess, for staff. Materials aren't anything that we should concern ourselves with, right? I mean, that's DDRC, correct? Construction
Yeah,
materials.
the materials of the building, yeah.
What about the height? Is that something that we should be concerned about in our site plan review?
The height would be considered by the zoning district, and it would meet the height
And it
requirement.
meets height requirement, yeah, okay.
I do have a question, though. Without regard to height, the general size and number of units relative to the area and what we perceive the impact to be is under our purview?
Can you repeat it?
So not with specific regard to height, but just the sheer number of units and the overall project size and how that internally and externally impacts the area that it's in is under our purview.
Yeah, so the density would be, you know, if you're talking about density, the density would be within the allowed zoning.
Okay.
So staff, may I ask this question to clarify? So that we're stating that the existing proposed request is within the zoning requirements today?
You're asking is whether or not the proposed plan meets the zoning requirements as of today?
Yes.
Correct.
copy of the traffic study, it says? Or have recommendations from the traffic study?
Yeah, the traffic impact study was on the agenda. It was hyperlinked after the case. I have a copy of it. I can share it with you.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it.
Yes, I was curious if any of the recommendations address any of the curb cuts in adjacent streets.
I think, I got a quick question. So this correspondence from the McKay firm, I believe we just got today. I have not seen this one until now. Item number 4, and that suggests the proposed hotel and parking garage does not conform with the Innovista overlay ordinance or overlay guidelines, which are superior to the base zoning guidelines. Can you speak to that, the Innovista overlay ordinance or the overlay guidelines?
I'm not sure what this, and I apologize, that email somehow, I didn't see it either, but I don't know what the specific concern is. I mean, it will be going to DDRC, so any things that are under the DDRC purview, will certainly be looked at is it a specific issue or?
It just says the proposed hotel and parking garage does not conform with the Innovista overlay ordinance or the overlay guidelines.
I mean, that will be something the DDRC will make a motion on next week.
Anybody need more time to read through correspondence or traffic study? Mr. Tupper, you good? All right. So I think we've heard all the emails and outside correspondence, so seeing no more of those, we'll turn it over to the audience. Anyone present in the audience that would like to speak for or against, please proceed.
Good evening.
Good evening. I will remind you, please state your name, full name, and we will try to limit the 2 minutes to the extent possible.
All right. I'm Laura Tucker. I'm the CEO for the Girl Scouts of South Carolina Mountains to Midlands. So thank you for having us here this evening. The Kathy Novinger Girl Scout Leadership Center is at 1107 William Street, and it's directly across William Street from the proposed the hotel and the parking garage. During planning and construction in 2018 and 19, we were asked to address the corner and intersection of Williams and Senate, where the proposed massive parking garage is planned. It is identified as a major gateway into pedestrian district. Our main entrance had to be on the corner and addressed appropriately, and it was. This current plan literally drives all hotel and garage parking to our front door. As an example, today, we actually had Girl Scout camp at the building, and we had girls walking, running, playing in that area. Girl Scouts of South Carolina Mountains to Midlands is troubled and concerned by the inevitable consequences of buildings that do not comply with standards currently in place. We spent incredible time, research, and investment into the decision to place the Kathy Novinger Girl Scout Leadership Center in the Vista. The center is projected to bring thousands of visitors to the city who have expectations of safety. With no excess from Gervais or Hugie Streets, traffic will be forced to drive within close proximity to the Kathy Novinger Girl Scout Leadership Center. The entrance to the parking garage in close proximity will lead to increased traffic, which will produce a negative impact on pedestrian and vehicle safety. The safety of current guests and members both parking and walking to the center for indoor activities is of great concern. And this center is a destination spot, not just for our girls, but for girls across the state and nationally, as now they come here on their way to Savannah, where it's where the Girl Scout founders' home was. And so this is a great safety concern. So we recommend that you do not approve this plan at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name's Charlie Ledecker. I live on William Street, directly across from the hotel. Before I retired, I worked as an archaeologist and supported hundreds of development projects for government and the private sector. A lot of my work was in urban areas, such as Cleveland, Richmond, Detroit, Chicago, St. Louis, Philadelphia, New York, and DC. So I've learned a bit about how projects succeed or fail in urban areas. I just want to go back over how we got where we are today. 6 days before the DDRC hearing in May, we learned about the project, and we went to the DDRC meeting and asked for a deferral so we'd have time to discuss with the developer what our concerns were. Last month, John Taylor and I met with Mr. Patel in person. We brought specific ideas to make the project more compatible with the neighborhood. John, who has 50 years' experience as an architect, developed an alternate site plan that would make things more compatible with what we have now. And many of the requests I made were based on the Innovista Design District guidelines. Can you move the parking deck to the interior of the block? Can you move the vehicle entrances to Hugie and Gervais Streets? Can you provide more pedestrian-friendly activities at street level? Restaurants, shops, display space, whatever. Everybody in our neighborhood agrees, and I think we have 23 people here in the room. We all welcome new development, but we want development that's compatible with the neighborhood. Our message to Mr. Patel was, show us a design that respects the Vista neighborhood and bring us a site plan that conforms with the district guidelines. But what you're looking at today is basically what we saw in May. We still have problems with the building scale. We're still having problems with vehicle access. And there's a few speakers that are going to follow me that will provide a little more detail on this. And I hope you'll agree that this site development plan with 250 rooms, 400 space parking garage, and a high-rise is just not going to work on this site. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm John Taylor, retired architect that he mentioned. I haven't practiced quite 50 years because I don't want to be any older than he portrays me to be. So anyway, I've been here for a long time practicing architecture. I'm retired now. I also served on this planning commission for 6 years, so I know a few of you from that. I just want to reiterate some of the things that he said, Charlie said. Excuse me. We did meet with Mr. Patel and reviewed some of our concerns, and you probably see this little sketch. Do you have that? Well, one of the main things it just shows is we think it would be a better solution to this if the parking garage was actually on Hugie Street and just flip this site plan over. And I looked at the site plan a good bit, and I think it'll work. It'll take some modifications to the configuration, but it's basically what was proposed for the corner of Williams and Gervais. And I live at 1127 Williams, which is directly across the street, if this is approved, from an almost 100-foot tall building right at my front door, about 100 feet away. So some of the other things that we talked about was possibly lowering the building, how you get in and out of the site, particularly relocating the building to Hugie Street. But Mr. Patel just gave it just lip service, no consideration, and that's borne out by the latest drawings we have seen for this building. We asked that he would actually take a look at the parking garage at the corner of Taylor and Sumter, if he could redo the way the parking garage looked, because if you look at that building, it's hard to tell it's a parking garage. So there are things that could be done, but we have no response or no consideration from Mr. Patel on this. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Sir.
How you doing? I'm Wade Kaufman. I'm a developer and was a co-developer on the City Club project right adjacent to this proposed hotel. I'm also a resident of the City Club. Our original site plans when we developed City Club, we had entrances on the front of the buildings. However, due to VISTA guidelines, city guidelines, and the InnoVista guidelines, we were required to make those changes. So we had to go back to the drawing board and change to put the entrances on the rear side and redesign our site plan. Thankfully, that was a great idea from the Planning Commission because we went back, we studied adjoining developments like the Publix grocery store, what even went into the McDonald's site plan, which is very unique for McDonald's, the Hampton Inn. And when we did that, we went back and ended up changing those designs, and from that had an award-winning project. We received an historical award for our project, which so we have an historical established residential community that meets all the guidelines and scales that the VISTA guidelines and the VISTA guidelines all required us to do. So, but this hotel, proposed hotel, and the complete site does not meet those guidelines. Couple things. The city ordinance 17-37, limiting new construction that is significantly out of scale in existing structures and or preserving structures that establish the character of the district that is residentially used. InnoVista Guidance Article 2.01, no predetermined architectural style or theme is mandated in InnoVista. However, the design of the building should be compatible with its function and with its surroundings, providing those surroundings are urban, pedestrian-oriented developments and around. One other thing, auto access has been mentioned from parking lots and structures should be on B streets. Williams and Senate are not B streets. Gervais and Hugie are B streets. So if we want to change Columbia and make a difference in our city, we already have an established corridor of hotels, which could be very special. This could be a very special, I mean, I'm pro-development. I've done everything in discarded developments, or discarded areas in the city, and I love it. But we have to make a stand to do something right and not just put a standard design on a site. If you put the entrances per the guidelines on either Gervais or Hugie, you cannot get on Gervais. You can't have 2,000 cars turning in there. It's better suited on Hugie Street, and it can accommodate and create some consistency that we already have, that we've already established in this great city. And that's my suggestion moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Vice Admiral Paul Gaffney. I'm a 10-year president of a university in New Jersey before retiring here, so I've appeared before many planning boards in the most densely populated state in the United States. Development is needed in this too long, fallow site that you are considering today on Columbia's most attractive gateway. That said, the site plan does not conform to 6 purpose and intent articles in the city development ordinance, 17-1.3, subsections 3, 4, 5, 8, 10, and 11. Words like harmonious, preserve scenic areas, maintains strong neighborhoods, and we are a neighborhood in the VISTA Neighborhood Association, protects character, provision of required streets, more about later, safe and convenient traffic, more on that later. These words bind the development process, but were ignored in the application. Moreover, the controlling overlay guidance articles are ignored in the proposed plan. Violation, this is the question you asked earlier, Article 1.1.3, a traffic issue, an issue for you, restricts street access, it is especially an egregious violation. 2.0.1 calls for compatibility with surroundings and compatible with existing, more traditional buildings like the City Club and even like McDonald's. 3.02 argues that the height and scale should complement existing structures, a sense of human scale and proportion. We hope that a new site plan will be done that's more forthright on traffic and considers compatibility, scale, and character. We recommend disapproval pending a reproposal that considers the intent in the law and the ruling in Vista guidelines and protects Columbia's most attractive gateway. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Tracy Barker, and I'm a City Club owner and a resident there, and I'd like to discuss traffic issues. Since our last meeting, a traffic study has been provided, but it appears to be hastily prepared without proper review. This is evidenced by dates on the report. If you look at the cover, it's dated June 2020. Further, if you look at further back, June 15th, you'll see a capacity analysis, and one day later, you have a PE stamp and approval. So it's hastily prepared. The June 2020 date is certainly a typo, but a question of an engineer's ability to properly review and stamp a 50-page report in less than 24 hours is suspect. With that being said, I'd like to highlight a few points that are overlooked in the report. First, the study uses Williams and Senate, which are A streets, for entry and exits. This conflicts with the overlay guidelines. Second, the study doesn't fully evaluate the dangers of turning left from Williams onto Gervais or turning left off of Senate onto Eugene. For example, the study mentions going down Williams and making a left on Gervais. At this point on Gervais, it's 6 lanes wide, and you're probably familiar with it's a landscape wooded area that you have to turn around or drive around to make a left turn. So turning at this point is extremely dangerous, and I think it deserves further evaluation. A third point, the traffic study should consider impacts of the future second development on this same property. This second development is destined to occupy 45% of the 390 parking spaces in that garage. Accordingly, a second development on this property will double the traffic load. Fourth, the study is segmented and does not mention surrounding traffic impacting projects, Girl Scouts coming and going, Dominion coal tar removal, nearby hotels that are new and approved, the Blossom Street Bridge replacement, it redirects traffic to Gervais. In closing, the traffic study is suspect, it lacks thoroughness, and is not forward-looking. Based on these facts, I recommend non-approval until an updated traffic study is submitted. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name's Jay McKay, and I think y'all just recently got the letter that I sent out this morning. But I live on William Street, which is directly across the street from where this proposed hotel is. If you go down William Street, it's a 1-block-long street. It has City Club residents on one side, on one part of it, and then there's a Girl Scout Center on the other part of it. It is a short street, and it has curbs that jut out into the street. It is not a straightaway. It's not a 4-lane street. It is tight in there. And the Girl Scouts were allowed to do curbs way out into the lanes to help slow down cars and slow down traffic. William Street is an A street, like we mentioned earlier. People with a lot more expertise than me that have talked. These are people that have graduate engineering degrees, lots of expertise, PhDs. So it's a terrible site plan. To put this main entrance of the hotel on William Street, where trucks will be going in there 24 hours a day, delivering supplies, cars in and out all day, all night. I think the site Tracy said that they call for 2,000 cars a day. Well, that's just for the hotel. He's got this next development that y'all asked about of a high-density apartment complex. I don't know how many units they're talking about on here. I heard 250 or 60 hotel units and maybe 300 apartment units, but I may be wrong about it. I don't hear well. But in any event, there are 37 units at the City Club. We have most of that block. That whole block has 37 units that we occupy, not 400 or 500 units, what this half a block that this proposed development is. You've heard a lot about how this development doesn't conform. It doesn't. It is significantly out of scale. The most beautiful entrance in Columbia is across the Gervais Street Bridge. You could see the City Club, it's beautiful. The Middleton Building, which is a historic building that's been beautifully redone, is in there. The other side is the State Museum. In any event,
Thank you, sir.
speak for one more second. This is incompatible with the city. All of you are the gatekeepers of what goes in the city. This is a major important part of the city of Columbia. You want something beautiful there. You want something compatible. I just got back from Italy. I stayed in a gorgeous hotel built in the 17th century in Rome. Turned out it was a Best Western, a little tiny little Best Western on it. They wouldn't allow this in Rome, and we shouldn't allow it in Columbia. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Mary Langston. Recently, my husband and I traveled by car to visit with family in Pennsylvania. We were surprised by how many true hotels we passed along the way. Even more surprising, not one was over 4 stories. And if memory serves me correctly, none were in residential neighborhoods either. Gervais Street Bridge is iconic and a Columbia treasure, along with the river and all that it has to offer both residents and visitors to our beautiful capital city. Then there's a beautiful view of the city up Gervais Street with the view of the Capitol ahead. And a view down Gervais Street towards West Columbia is a pleasure, with the buildings all being of similar height and structure, blending in nicely. City Club was developed on an empty lot starting in 2007 with the vision of a neighborhood welcoming more residents to the downtown area. We are not opposed to development, but as a neighborhood, we would like to see something similar developed with permanent residents that own their homes, maintain their property, and again, increase the tax base in the city while enhancing the Gervais Street area and our entrance to Columbia. At the previous meeting on this monstrosity, a comment made by the individuals interested in developing the 7-story eyesore showed us that they have no interest in working with our community. The only goal they mentioned was getting the job completed as quickly as possible, with absolutely no care for the quality for our city, our citizens, and our residents. What about safety issues? What about the Girl Scouts that have invested in the welfare of Columbia and our community, and the empty parking with homelessness and crime increasing? Please plan the development of this gateway that we can all be proud of and that will enhance the vista and the city. Finally, they did not work with any of us, the people of Columbia that live and work here. And thank you again for the last time deferring it for more comments.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am Rebecca McMillan, and I, along with my husband Doug, live in City Club. I am a former president of the City Club HOA. I rise in opposition to the construction of this interstate-type, cookie-cutter, ugly, unimaginative proposed hotel for the Lower Vista of Columbia. You've heard from my neighbors, and I totally concur with every statement. Safety issues. You or the people or your predecessors who granted the Girl Scouts the right to be there. Let's protect them. They don't need to sit under a 7-story monolith. You've heard of the lack of compatibility with the other issues of buildings in our area. Those two had to make compliance with your guidelines. And we've so well done it. We're a heterogeneous community. I was once told that Southerners, this was told to me by someone from a different area of our country, that Southerners were like marshmallow-covered razor blades. You heard that one? His meaning was that we rarely say exactly what we think, and we cut you by the very fact that you do not know our thoughts. I do disagree with that, but let there be no ambiguity here. I am removing that marshmallow. I am not asking you, I'm begging you, as respectfully as I know how, to deny this cookie-cutter, interstate-type monster hotel with its lack of design befitting the area it wants to join. If you do this, you will be doing what old Sherman, in his efforts with those cannonballs, did in trying to obliterate the State House from the view across that Gervais Street Bridge. It's the only semi-beautiful entrance into the city.
Thank you,
I
ma'am.
thank you for your time. I have a lot more I could say, but we so disapprove of this. We'd like a hotel, but we don't want this one. It's unimaginative. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else present that would like to speak? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Kathy Radis, and I've been a Girl Scout for 33 years. And I just wanted to say that I've lived in Columbia for 45 years, and the view coming from West Columbia into Columbia is magnificent. And if this 7-story building is proposed, it will block the view of Columbia, which is the perfect spot. That's all I need to say.
Thank you. Is there anyone else present that would like to speak for or against this case?
Hello, my name's Mike Ridgway, and I prepared the traffic study for the project and wanted to answer any questions that you may have, but did want to point out a couple things about this site. I've heard some comments about it'd be better to have access directly to Gervais and Hugh G. Street, and I would have to disagree with that. This is one of the busiest intersections in Columbia, where obviously everyone's aware of Hugh G. Street and Gervais Street. And so providing direct access to either one of those streets closer to that major signalized intersection, in my opinion as a traffic engineer, is not a good idea. And I doubt would be approved by the Department of Transportation. So I understand the comments of the residents, but from a traffic standpoint, we are making use of existing connections that connect to Gervais Street and Hugh G. Street, which is preferred. I mean, you want them to access the major arterials as far away as they can. By having access to Gervais and Hugh G. Street, it also provides some options. For instance, if someone, let's say, was heading towards the Capitol in the afternoon, they're not going to make a left turn out onto Gervais Street and then onto Huger and then a right onto Gervais. They can go up and make a right turn onto Gervais and go through the traffic light. And that's one of the benefits of having access to both roadways at existing locations. I will also point out that the study that we've done is likely conservative. We did not take a reduction for pedestrian traffic, but in reality, the location of this hotel will allow for people to use restaurants in the Vista, go to Publix without using their vehicles. So I think there are some positives from a traffic standpoint. I'm here to talk about traffic, but I'd love to answer any questions that you may have, if I could.
When was the traffic, it was done in 20?
I'm sorry?
It was done in 2020?
No, the traffic study was done in 2022.
2022, okay.
There was a typo on the first page of the report, and I apologize for that.
Okay, thank you.
I'll be here if anyone needs to ask me any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion from the applicant?
We just want to say that we appreciate hearing what everybody says, but, we've been working with the city to get this, diligently, getting this site plan acceptable to everybody. Like I said before, all the city agencies have reviewed it and have recommended it for approval. As far as the appearance, we are working with the DDRC about the way this will look and fit in with the rest of the buildings in the area.
Thank you. All right. Planning Commission have any further questions for the applicant or staff?
I have one other question. Maybe it's more procedural. Just having general concerns about safety, traffic, and ultimately that I would anticipate a lot of comments from DDRC. Would it, instead of denying it, if we deferred it, having their approval, then this plan it could potentially come back in the same form? I guess I'm scared if we put a motion to deny it, that would create some challenges for them at DDRC.
I mean, I guess, in a way, the issues are really sort of different. The DDRC is looking at the design guidelines from a, materials and massing and fenestration and that sort of thing. The Planning Commission approval is based on the specific categories for site plan approval. The only real area of overlap is a little bit about circulation, access and circulation. So, I mean, y'all have a motion to make. I don't know that that would change anything about the Planning Commission recommendations. Staff recommendations would likely remain the same unless the applicant decided to change their proposal, but.
I guess in my opinion, there are enough concerns and comments that came up today with the Innovista overlay district and some other things that I think DDRC really needs to take a look at before we would act on this site plan. Whether it changes the site plan or not, if it changes it, then they're coming right back to us to get reapproval of a site plan that we may or may not approve today. So that's just my opinion of, I really think DDRC should see it and approve it before I could recommend approval of the site plan.
That's kind of where I'm at as well. If anybody else has any other.
Yeah.
Yep.
So are there any questions for staff in that regard? Any further comments, questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion that we defer site plan 2022-0013.
Got a motion to defer. Can I get a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second to defer. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The ayes have it. The motion is to defer.
Yeah, we gotta make a motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
No, it's fine. I looked at yours, I just wanted to look at it again. I think I printed it right off. I did.
Officially.
So is there any other business?
Nope.
All right, as there is no other business, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Got a motion to adjourn, can I get a second?
Second.
Got a second, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. The meeting is adjourned.